Hello and welcome to Raise the Room podcast. I'm your host, Danica. Here at Raise the Room, we are trying to consciously raise our kids, re-raise ourselves, and by doing so, raise the vibe of any room we walk into simply with our authenticity. Now let's get to it. Hello and welcome to another episode of Raise the Room. I am Danica, your host, and today we are going to be talking to my friend Autumn from the Nest Counselling. She's going to be giving us some free advice, some free 99 relationship advice, and her gifts in this profession really shine through here. Autumn and I met in university at a house party. We talk about that a little bit at the end of the episode, through our mutual girlfriend, Hannah. And Autumn just always was and still is a very wise soul. She also enlightens us today with how to maintain a healthy relationship. She talks about love meetings. She talks about what our fights are really about. This episode is really it's juicy for those of us that are in relationship. And even just in relationship with anybody. Does not have to be your romantic partner, honestly, with anybody. These are just good basic strategies and facts. If you are here from Autumn's camp, I do want to just put out a little disclaimer. The first 10 minutes are basically just me talking about her human design. And it's not a lot of Autumn. So if you're here strictly for Autumn, feel free to skip ahead. Although I think all of that stuff we talked about is interesting and gives you a really good idea of her inner workings. But I just want to say, if you're starting to listen and you're getting annoyed, she does shine through. After about the 10-minute mark, we get into it. So I just wanted to put that out there. Finally, Autumn really wants everybody to know that the advice she's giving today, as I had people write in, is not a substitute for therapy. It is professional, general education. Obviously, when she's in session with people, there are layers and nuances and strategies that will be different when she fully knows the couple as opposed to an anonymous question being submitted. So let's just put that out there right from the get-go. Autumn is excited to be offering a new program for couples in the early years of parenthood that helps with better communication, enhance intimacy, and feel on the same team, especially in parenthood. This will be launching later this summer, 2023, and it is a small group virtual program. So make sure you go to her website. I've got it in the show notes, nestcounselling.ca, and or just follow her on Instagram. She has amazing content on how to be a better partner, how to communicate well in your relationship, on the trials and tribulations of being in partnership in early parenthood. Her content is really invaluable, especially if you are somebody that is curious and self-aware and interested in showing up the best for the people that you love. All right, and a small piece of housekeeping. It is June, and in Danica's world in June, I go insane. It's the end of the year as a teacher. It's my son's birthday. It seems like it's every other kid that was born in 2016's birthday. I went to 3 last weekend, 2 this past weekend. We've got 2 this coming up weekend. It's the amount of things that are swirling around in my brain right now are crazy. So I'm not sure that I will be able to consistently get out a podcast over the next couple of weeks. I will definitely keep you posted on Instagram and through my email list. You should also sign up for my email list. You get a freebie on how human design can help your parenting. It's a PDF I created. But I just wanted to be transparent that I don't want to release episodes just to release episodes so that I'm being, regular or consistent. As much as I would love that and I strive for that, I also don't want to add additional stress to my life right now when it's quite literally the busiest time of year for me. So if that means taking a little break for integrity's sake, that's what I'm going to do. Okay, here's a quick ad, then we will get into our episode with the lovely Autumn. Please excuse me while I interrupt myself to talk to you about ways that you can work with me, Danica. You can sign up for a human design session with me where we go over your chart in depth, either a level 1 or a level 2 reading for those of you that have a little bit of base knowledge already. You can also sign up for a reading to get your own chart and your child's chart read, or really any secondary chart if you'd rather it be your partner. All of these sessions are in-depth overviews of your human design for those of you that want to go deep in understanding your design. For those of you that just want to dip your toe in the water, especially in regards to understanding your children, I have human design parenting courses. These courses are tools to put in your toolkit to try and understand the little humans that you are raising in regards to their type in human design. These courses are broken down into 4 easily digestible segments, totaling about 30 to 40 minutes each. You can stop and start when you like, and we'll walk away with practical strategies for how to work with your child's design instead of against them. I've put a lot of love into these videos, both in my understanding of human design, but also my understanding of children from being an elementary school teacher and a mother going through the thick of it just like you. When you purchase these courses, you're then also given access to what's called the remainder reading, where I go over the main elements of your child's chart, which then equates to having a full level 1 reading done of them. This reading is only available if you've already bought the Human Design Parenting course. It's very exclusive. Even though my website is currently under construction, this is still where you will be able to book a reading and find the courses. danicamarie.com. That's Danica with a C. Or in my Instagram bio linktree at raise.the.room on Instagram. All right, enough of me. Let's get back to the episode, which I guess is more me. All right, I am here with my friend Autumn, who I just told you about. We were actually just talking about the term that she prefers or that is most widely understood, because I went, what are you? Are you a counselor? Are you a therapist? What are you? And she actually educated me that apparently the most broadly understood term is psychotherapist.
Yeah. Okay. But I'm absolutely a counselor and a therapist. You can use any of the words.
Okay. I like that. See, psychotherapist sounds almost the most intense to me. I would have shied away from that, but that's really interesting that across the nation, that's the one that we sort of all get.
That's what I found anyway.
Okay. Bureaucracy. Got it. All right. So I'm going to take a moment to explain to our listeners your human design, as I always do. And you were somebody that surprised me when we had a session together. I was surprised to find out that you were a manifesting generator, just because being in the counselor role, it's very like projector vibes. So I thought maybe you would be. But the more we delved into your life and your chart, it makes so much sense. So Autumn is an emotional, or a 5/1 emotional manifesting generator. So the manifesting generators of this world are our most dynamic. They actually have the biggest battery of all of the types, and they're here to basically pour into a bunch of different passions. And they're kind of the people that are like carving a new way. They pull together all of the things that they like to create something new. Practically, what this looks like in their life is having a bunch of different interests, or trying out a bunch of different new things, or being somebody that sort of can change their mind or change their path a lot. And when we were talking in our session, you were sort of like, okay, but I'm not super energetic. Like, I am very calm and focused, and I like went to school, got my degree. Like, I didn't change my mind a lot. And it was a really good session for me, because after I was leaving, I left and thought, yeah, there's something else here. And I noticed with you, and then a chiropractor manifesting generator, a Reiki practitioner manifesting generator, like a couple of people that are sort of in the healing industry. Actually, I had about 5 examples where they had this very centered, it wasn't super high energy presence, but it was that all of them had extremely full lives and were able to handle a lot, whether it's interest wise, or how busy their day was, or just their capacity to hold a lot. And when I brought that up to you at the end, I think we kind of landed on that at the end of our session. You were like, yes, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, totally resonates.
Because you actually even said you like, yeah, I like concerts and I'm into this and I'm into that. And you've got 2 young boys and you're married and you've got your business where you work full time. So there's a lot going on over there.
Yeah. I would say my hands are not empty.
And not that you don't get overwhelmed, but it's very much manifesting generator vibes to have like a lot of balls in the air.
I think I'd be bored if I didn't.
Yes. And that sounds right to me. And so then the other part of your chart that we spoke about, aside from being a manifesting generator, is being an emotional manifesting generator, which essentially, when you are somebody that has the word emotional in front of your design, what this means is you live your life with moods that you wake up with that have nothing to do with what's actually going on in your day. So it could be, the best day of your life, but you could just be waking up in like a 2 out of 10 blue mood for no reason. And then some days you're in the high, and then there's days where you're in the sort of neutral of your mood. And explaining this to somebody that is emotional in human design, they're like, yeah, that makes sense. Like I find that's always the piece of our session that goes like, yes, that is something that I've dealt with my whole life, being sort of on a wave of feelings that are outside of my control, essentially. Can you speak to that a little bit? That felt right to you?
Yeah, like I just feel how I feel. And I have a lot of, I think we talked about this, like when I'm seeking clarity or decisions in my life, I'm like kind of looking to feel a certain way. But I don't necessarily feel like I have any control over that. Like I'll just know it when it happens. Like there's just sort of this like I've turned myself over to the universe. The universe is just going to tell me how I feel about everything.
Yeah. And I think we also kind of took a peek at your husband's chart too, because when you're an emotional person, you're actually meant to take time with your decisions because it's hard for you to understand how you feel about something unless you've sort of waited it out. You have to wait to get clarity. Whereas your husband had the opposite setup in his chart where he knows in the now. And you were like, oh my God, that is our everyday argument. Like, why don't you know? And how do you already know?
Yeah. And this expectation from him, like that I need to figure it out. And how do I not just have the answer right away?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think I can also come across as somebody who knows, maybe people who don't know me that well. No one who knows me would say this, but that I come across as someone that like would know or would have a direction or something. And people who know me know I'm extremely indecisive, or it takes me a very long time to make a decision.
That actually leads beautifully into the next part of your chart, your profile. You're a 5-1. And what you just talked about was your 5th line, where you feel like people probably think you've got the answer. And when you are somebody that is a 5th line in human design, you present as the one that has it all together. You're the person that people go to for help. You're the one that has this innate competence about you. So if you have a 5th line, there is something that you bring to the table that people trust. And it's just part of your nature, and it's part of your gifts. Is like you are somebody that is really competent and kind of able to handle things. And then pair that with the 1st line, which is so the one side of the 5-1, somebody who likes to gather knowledge and gather information because you get security from having a healthy foundation for whatever it is that you are looking into, interested in doing. Like for you in your life, it would be like you like to gather knowledge for obviously your work, but also you're a parent. So for parenting, you're married, for like how to have a healthy marriage. If you're into, eating healthy, it'd be like gathering all the information to how to eat well. Like these are our classic Google junkies. And actually, I thought it was so interesting because online, Jenna Zoe, who's a very well-known human design reader, she has kind of come up with her own names for each of these profiles. And the 5-1 in her terms is called the challenge solver.
Ooh.
And I'm like, you're a therapist. Like that makes so much sense. Like,
I
yes,
love it.
sign me up for a session with Autumn. She's the challenge solver. I thought that
Oh,
was
I
so
like
good.
that.
That's not the official human design name. The other one's called the heretic investigator, which is also really interesting because heretic meaning like somebody who kind of goes against the norm, and then
Mm.
investigator because you like to like find knowledge in order to have a firm or solid sort of foundation to stand on.
Mm-hmm.
So both of those things really just lead you to be somebody that people want to trust.
I hope so.
Yeah, exactly. But all of those things lean to you being really embodied in your design because I know when we had our session together, you talked about how you knew you needed more time to understand and to make decisions. And yet there was sort of a guilt there for having to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think the beauty about human design is just like hearing about that about yourself and then going, okay, so I don't have to feel bad about this. This is part of my design. Like I do need the time.
Yeah. It's this beautiful permission.
Yeah. When we talk about like also being emotional in human design, it's a permission slip to not feel guilt about your moods, about the fact
Mm-hmm.
that you do sort of have to just roll with the punches when it comes to like being up some days and down some days.
Yeah.
All right. I'm curious, after all your human design stuff, do you want to tell everybody what got you to get
Mm.
into opening a practice?
Yeah. So I did my graduate program in counseling in 2013, graduated in 2015. And after that, I was working in as an associate in other practices and for the health authority and, had my hand in 20 different hats because that's my little
Manifesting
manifesting.
generator.
Yeah. um, but I always knew that I would one day have my own practice. And I've
Mm.
always wanted it to focus on relationships.
Mhm.
Like the reason I went into counseling was to be a relationship therapist. And so um, when I was at home on maternity leave with my first babe,
Mhm.
COVID hit.
Mhm.
And so then I'm in lockdown and I'm a new mom and my relationship is
Yeah.
stressing
Yeah.
because of all of the things. And
We're all getting
I,
fat, you know. It's just
I
like,
mean, I was just still,
yeah,
yeah, I don't know that I
yeah.
got, yeah. Um, and then because I'm also a one, I'm
Mhm.
doing all of this research, trying to figure out how to support a relationship in the transition to parenthood. And I'm finding almost no information. I've read any
Mm.
books that are available. I've looked into any programs in my area. I'm like, there must be, I did a birth class. I did this class. There must be something. There's nothing, nothing, nothing. And I was like, this is it. This is
Yeah.
the gap I'm going to fill.
Yeah.
And I think just like the timing of my life gave space at that point, or it felt like I had space because I was at home and off work to start
Mhm.
dreaming up this practice. And I launched it before my kid was 1. And yeah, I've just loved it ever since. It feels like the best thing I've ever done.
That's so cool. And when you were in university, did you know you were going to go into counseling or
Yeah.
because, a lot of people have a psychology degree.
Mm-hmm.
We all go and take psych 101 or whatever
Yeah.
it is, right?
Yeah, I am one of those strange people who knew that they wanted to be a therapist. Like, I think I was 15 when I found out
Mhm.
what a therapist was. And I
Mhm.
thought, oh my gosh, someone will pay you money to talk
Mhm.
and listen to people's stories. Like,
Yeah.
sign me up.
Yeah.
And then I applied to psych programs. Like, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I probably during my undergrad might have wavered a little bit, like, do I want to do this? But
Mhm.
once I got my first taste of counseling, I knew. And I haven't, yeah, just
Haven't
kind of
looked
carried
back.
on. Yeah.
Did you grow up in a house where counseling and therapy was like normal, spoken about? Yeah.
Yeah. My dad was actually an addictions counselor
Oh, wow.
when I was really young.
That's heavy stuff.
Yeah. And my mom worked with young kids who had like behavioral sensory issues. So I think they were in the
Mm,
helping field, the helping profession. And
yeah.
yeah, it was totally normal and talked about.
Oh my gosh, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I grew up in a house where counseling was definitely something like if you were having a hard time, like that was a totally normal response was to go have a few sessions, or it wasn't something that was a regular thing, but
Mhm.
very open in my house. And I kind of just thought it was a normal thing. And I remember not relating, like watching a show one time. There was a TV show and there was, some person that was a character needed to was got suggested to go to counseling, but they wouldn't. And I literally didn't understand it. Like I was like, wait, what's wrong with it?
You need help.
Yeah.
Here's the solution. Yeah.
Yes, but there is, there I think was, and it's less so now, but such a stigma for some people about needing to go get help in that way. And it's wild
Absolutely.
because I don't think that it's not as common anymore.
I mean, I don't think it's as common anymore, but it
Mm-hmm.
definitely still exists. And I
Yeah.
think a big part of that is whatever messages you received when you were young, whether that was from your family of origin or your like your immediate community, culture, other significant adults in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, if people are telling you that there's something shameful, there's something wrong with you if you go to counseling, then you're probably not going to feel comfortable going later
Yeah.
on in life.
No kidding. Actually, even I noticed this with my students that are from other countries, like because
Mm,
I work with a caseload of students that have immigrated to Canada in the school
mhm,
district. And even just the way that they'll respond about things that have just recently happened, like I'll witness them go through something difficult at school, culturally, how what is considered normal and as far as like sharing an experience is
mhm,
really, really interesting.
mm.
Like something that was hard, but like must be shared with a smile on your face,
Yes.
or
Yes.
um, complete denial. Or, I mean, some of it is like teenagers. I'm working with teenagers, but
Yeah.
that has been a learning curve for me because even though these kids and I have a good relationship and a close one, I would say, as far as teacher student goes, because we have sort of a unique outside of the classroom sort of setup,
Mhm.
they still certain cultures are not okay with admitting that things are not okay, even though I literally just witnessed it, like
Yeah,
you'd think I would be the person that they would be like, yeah, that was rough. What happened there, Mrs. Wood? That they won't even go there.
totally. The messages we grew up with when we're young are going to have such a huge impact with how comfortable we are expressing vulnerability, that we've
Yeah.
had challenges, that anything is wrong ever.
Yes. At any point in time.
Yeah,
Oh
which
my
as we
gosh.
know is everybody has hard times.
Yeah.
That's just the human condition.
Yes. Yeah. Life is hard. That is that. Actually, when you were talking about wanting to fill the gap for trying to help the transition to parenthood, did you ever read the book called Baby Proofing Your Marriage? Did you ever hear about that?
No, I no. Who wrote
Okay.
that?
So I don't know. Okay, what I do know is that I ended up getting the audiobook of it. This was like 1 year after we had our firstborn. And I suffered through some pretty terrible, like what are the words? Like the people speaking. Oh my God, what are they called? The voice people who are reading the audiobooks.
Authors?
It's not the author though, but it's like the people
Oh,
reading, and it was the most like grating voice I had ever
um,
heard.
I'm so
And
curious.
I know, but it helped me. And I don't think it's a very like well received book, but I will say what I took from it was a sense of, okay, a lot of married couples are going through these things, like I think I just took away from it. I didn't feel so alone in the difficulties that come to, in that postpartum period where it's like, oh, wow, yeah, a lot of women feel really bitter or resentful that so much more of it's on their plate, or
Yeah.
all of a sudden we're disagreeing on things that we didn't disagree on before. Like, I don't think that book is one that I would recommend, but in that time in my life, it really helped me to not feel like my relationship was a failure because
Totally.
it's
It
like, oh,
normalized it.
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
That's the word. It was like, oh, that's what a lot of people go through after having a child.
Yes. And I would
Yep.
say that's a huge part of my mission is to
Mm,
just not just normalize therapy and normalize relationship therapy, but normalize the challenges that your relationship may face, not will face, but like research shows us 67% of couples are going to experience um, dissatisfaction or a decrease in their satisfaction in their
mhm.
marriage after having a baby. So
Yeah.
it's a big chunk of people. So if we can just normalize that, like this can happen, it doesn't mean that it's going to feel like this forever. And there's things that you can do to
Hmm.
support a healthy relationship during a challenging time.
Mm.
Like, help me get that word out there.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Would you mind sharing a few of the things that you would recommend to people for specifically that period of time in their lives where they've just become new parents and they want to, I guess, proactively keep the connection strong?
Yeah, so many things. I actually have a resource if people want um, to download it, and you can
Mm,
just find that on my webpage. But um, a few quick ones is like figure out ahead of time all of the things that you think that you need to get done while you have a little one and running a house. Like
mm,
write down all the things: dishes, laundry, meal prep, grocery store, changing diapers, blah, blah, blah. And then write down who you think is going to do what. And then compare
mhm,
and have a conversation about like how realistic is it for this? Like, what if this happens? What if baby's up all night
mhm,
and maybe the parent that was up with the baby needs to catch a little bit more rest the next day? Like, how are we going to, what are the expectations we have
mhm.
going into parenthood? What are our greatest fears? What are our greatest hopes? What can we do to feel connected? What can we do to fill our individual cups? So, a lot of those conversations you can actually have ahead of time. But if you're in the stage of early parenthood and you're thinking, well, I never had those conversations and I'm in it and resentment is brewing, you can have those conversations now. This is
Yeah.
what I thought parenthood was going to be like. And I'm noticing that it is not the vision that I had. And
Yeah. Yeah.
what do you think? Is it the vision
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just having that open dialogue to co-create a reality together and support each other um to support each other's well-beings. But
Hmm.
by supporting each other's well-being, you're also going to support the relationship.
Yeah. And it's so important too to like have those conversations not in the heat of the moment, proactively have the
Yeah.
conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I talk a lot about something called a love meeting,
Mm,
which it's not like an idea that I created, but I've coined this love meeting idea. And it's essentially like a team meeting.
yeah.
Like if you work anywhere where you've ever had a team meeting, exactly the same thing.
Mm,
But picking a time ahead of time and creating an agenda with your partner so that it's kind of this neutral space. You're not blindsiding anybody with a topic. It's like, hey,
yeah.
we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about our budget, or
Hmm.
we're going to sit down and we're going to talk a little bit about sex and a little bit about conflict. And hey, we also need to book hotels for our summer vacation. You've got like
I love
three
that.
different topics, and you're
Oh,
just going to, like, in that way that it's not the heat of the moment. It's not,
yes.
you're pissed because you haven't had sex in X number, whatever,
Yeah.
and now you're spewing about it. It's like we're
Yeah.
gonna have this conversation. It's something I want to bring up, and just so you have a heads up, it's going to be on the agenda.
Right. Oh, I love that. That's such a great idea. And actually, I think probably a lot of us do that, unknowingly. It's just like, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
after the kids, for us, it's okay, once the kids are down, I need to talk to you about the school field trip, this,
Yeah,
that, the other thing. It's like, and don't let me
exactly.
forget it because we're both zombies once the kids go down. But it's
Yeah,
like, there still has to be some things ticked off the list. So that makes a lot of
exactly.
sense.
Exactly. See, you're already doing it.
Actually, and in baby proofing their marriage, they talked about the list, about writing down, splitting every single thing that it
Uh,
takes to run a household. Like, and they're like, we're talking everything. Like, when the masking tape runs out, whose responsibility is to buy that? Like, who's the one who buys all the gifts for everybody? Like, everything, just all of these weird little menial jobs that being in a relationship and running a household that come up. It's like, there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think maybe what we'll do now, even though I could probably talk to you about actually, first, let's talk about what it is that you offer, because you offer,
Oh,
yeah, I want to make sure that people have a thorough understanding of what it is that they can go to you for.
yes. Great
Mm-hmm.
idea. So I am a individual and couples therapist. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
supporting people primarily, like my specialty is relationships. So if somebody is coming to see me as an individual without their partner, or they don't have a partner, maybe that looks like having conversations about past relationships they've had, patterns that they're noticing in themselves, barriers that they're finding to being in a committed relationship. Or maybe it has nothing to do with romantic relationships. And instead, we're focusing on the patterns that they're noticing in their friendships or their family of origin, with siblings, with their parents, with their own children, in the workplace. And really, that's boiling down to like boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
communication, conflict style, things of that nature. And then in couples therapy, it's all of that plus maybe sex and intimacy,
Mm-hmm.
maybe parenting struggles and challenges. When I'm working with couples who are in the early years of parenthood or transitioning into parenthood, preparing for parenthood, we're talking a lot about individual identities, identity
Yeah.
as a couple, how to remain connected, how to manage conflict with little ones running around,
Mm-hmm.
all of those things. So the offerings that I provide are therapy, and I'm actually very close to being able to launch a program that I've developed for couples in the early years of parenthood, where maybe if you're wanting a little bit more of some self-study, you don't want to just sign up for months of couples therapy. There'll be an additional offering for people coming soon. So if people want to come hang out with me on Instagram or my email list, they will be the first to hear.
Cool. That's exciting. Good for
I
you.
know. So excited.
Very cool. One thing I tell people, because one thing projectors do is like give unsolicited advice all the time. And well, actually, if you're an aligned projector, then you're not doing that. But when I'm talking to people who are about to have kids or who just had a baby, like one of the things I always say is read the books on how to help your toddler, like
Mm,
with before you have a toddler,
mm,
because I think there's a lot of focus, or I felt at least there's a ton of focus on like reading books about babies, about birth, about that phase. And for me, that phase was a nightmare, but it's like, okay, I'm not sleeping, the nursing is hard. Like it was hard and I struggled big time, but it's short. Then all of
mm,
a sudden you're dealing with like a little human that's losing it in front of you multiple times daily.
mm-hmm.
And if you have any sort of conflict in your relationship with your partner, it's going to come out when you're
Yeah.
trying to handle another human who's not handling themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's a lot to be said for having some sort of discussions or preparation beforehand. I don't think that we can know everything before we're faced with a toddler or a young human, but I wish that we had kind of sat down and been like, what do you think about spanking? What's your view on punishments? What's your view on
Absolutely.
public meltdowns? Like, because those are
Mm-hmm.
all things that come up, and it's like, I was like,
Yes.
no, like a spanking's a hard no for me, and there's so many moments that are just like really rife with emotion that come up once you're
Mm-hmm.
dealing with a human that has their own will.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yes. This is solid
Mm-hmm.
unsolicited advice that you're handing
Woo!
out.
Yay!
And I think also I just really want to highlight a piece you said there, because you're suggesting that people should read a book about toddlers.
Mm-hmm.
Great advice.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also noted that you and your partner might have different ideas
Mm.
about that.
Yeah.
So it's one thing for us as maybe an individual entering parenthood to feel like we've read all the books and done all the things. But then all of a sudden, if you're with somebody else and your partner hasn't read all the books and isn't clear on what they want, or
Yes.
maybe they also have, but they've got a totally different idea and you haven't
Yes.
communicated it.
Yes.
Those are going to be some sticky moments the first time your toddler does have a meltdown in public,
Yeah.
or you're figuring out how to navigate punishment, consequences, no consequences, discipline of sorts,
Yes.
and you're having that conversation in the moment in front of your melting down toddler. Like,
Yeah, you're
that's
fighting.
an intense time.
Yes. All of a sudden the fight's turned between you and your husband and you're like, oh, whoops.
Yeah.
There's a kiddo here. Yeah. I don't know. I think that the baby phase can be really hard, or is really hard too, but it goes by quickly. And then the rest of parenthood is parenting behavioral moments.
Yeah, totally.
Like
And
it's
also, just to give grace to all new parents out there, I don't know that you can know any of this until you're in it. Like,
oh
if somebody
gosh.
had told me to read a book about parenting a toddler before I'd ever even given birth, I would have been
No,
like,
God, no.
I mean, sure, I'll put it on my to-do list, but like, I
Yeah.
don't have time for
Yes.
that.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I mean, and I'm saying this because I'm somebody who definitely did not do that,
Yeah.
like 100% didn't. I also had the ego of being a teacher, so thinking that I like knew, what the hell I was doing, and then just obviously did not. So
Yeah. Well, I think it's really different when it's your own kids.
oh, and it's day in and day out.
Yeah, it's relentless. There's no break.
No. So yeah, you do become a different human. And it's like how I teach in September versus how I teach in June. Like, no. By the end of it, I'm like, okay, I've had enough of you. Like, let's move on,
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
basically.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, we had some roomies, listeners, write in some really solid questions for you. And so we get to kind of peek into your world a little bit and see your genius. And I'm really excited to hear your answers for these questions. So, Autumn, what would you like? I sent you the questions ahead of time. Would you like to read them? Would you like me to read them and then you answer? What's more comfortable for you?
I would like you to read them.
Okay, sounds good. So I had sent out an email to people that they could write in asking questions, and I put a link on my Instagram. And this is what we got. Question number 1: what to do when you feel like you're having the same argument over and over with your partner? There's no change, just repeating. This then leads you down the road to avoidance and irritation.
This is probably the golden question in couples therapy.
Yes.
Like, this is why someone comes into my office.
Yeah.
Is, we're having the same fight over and over again. It's a tale as old as time. And what I would say is, if you're having the same fight over and over again, one thing is almost certain, is that the thing that you're fighting about is not the thing that you're fighting about. So let's say you're fighting, I always use this example because it's what we fight about, that your partner is always putting their dishes on the counter on top of like where the dishwasher is instead of in the empty dishwasher. And now you're annoyed and it's been a long day and you're frustrated and you're now arguing about why can't they just put the dishes in there, right? So sure, we could go into a lot of really specific tactics about communication skills and how to deliver that information appropriately, yada, yada, yada. But it's actually not about the dishes. It's really, truly not about the dishes. It is almost certainly about a much deeper need that is not being met, or a fear that is present. So, for example, in that scenario, it might be that I have a need to be appreciated or be respected, to be valued. And I'm feeling like the fact that the dishes aren't being put away when I know I've asked for it to be done 100 times means that I'm being disrespected. I'm not being valued as a partner. I'm not being appreciated by the fact that I'm the one that's putting the dishes away every night before bed and not even getting a thank you for it. Right. So it's triggering this deeper need that is going unmet, or maybe this fear that I truly am unappreciated in this relationship and I am unvalued. And maybe my partner is taking me for granted and our relationship is at risk or being threatened in the sense of like, is it going to dissolve? Am I going to lose this relationship that I value so greatly? So whatever it is you're arguing about, and like, I know we're going deep real fast.
Yeah.
It's because something is being triggered likely in different scenarios, and you're entering into a very similar patterned dance, because it's likely that when that gets triggered in you, the way that you respond, maybe with criticism, maybe with defensiveness, maybe with shutting down, that triggers something else very deep in your partner. And now they're going to respond with something else.
Interesting. So your advice would be to make sure that you are getting to the core need and that you're discussing that. And then together you can make strategies moving forward.
Yeah. So one way that you could begin to do this is just to simply ask yourself, what is my need here? Do I need to feel heard? Do I need to feel important? Do I need to feel like I belong? These are some common human attachment needs.
Of course.
And then you could inquire with your partner. What's a need that you're having?
Right.
What's a need that's not being met for you? What comes up for you when I get upset about the dishes on the counter? I'm feeling undervalued. I'm feeling, X. What comes up for you when I say that?
I love that.
And just start to get curious with each other about like, okay, I'm noticing we're having the same fight over and over again. Obviously, we don't want to have like a 10 out of 10 argument every day about the dishes. What's really going on? Let's have a conversation about it, outside of the heat of the moment.
I really like that. I think then asking your partner to like, what is it that's coming up for you is a piece that I think probably doesn't get played out enough for people.
Yeah, it takes two always.
Yeah. Yes. Interesting. Thank you very much. All right, let's do question number 2. Advice on how to cope with imposter syndrome as a mom. I struggle with feeling like I am not deserving of unconditional love from my kids. I constantly fall short on my own expectations and theirs. I am not the mom I imagined or want to be, and worry I won't ever be good enough for them.
Ugh, I want to hug this person.
I felt the same way. I know.
There's a few different pieces I want to address in this question. I might have to get you to reread it to me at some point. But first of all, the imposter syndrome piece. I mean, I think this is something that's really human for a lot of us to feel like, I mean, the 5 in me, if I'm saying that right?
Yeah.
Like, right? Like we're wearing a mask and people maybe think that we're greater than we are.
Right.
Or we don't feel like we're as good as we need to be good at something. So I want to validate that is a human experience. And then also acknowledge that whenever we do anything in this life, like whether it's a job or a sport or a relationship, we always start as a novice. Nobody is expecting you to be an expert parent the first day that you're a parent. And I wonder if that has ever been said to this person. And if it has, where is this message coming from that they're supposed to be an expert right away or perfect, right? Like I might get curious about some perfectionistic tendencies that might be popping up for this person. Is that self-imposed, that idea, or is that coming from somewhere else? Maybe family, maybe messages from society, etc. Okay, so that's the imposter piece. And then I think the other piece they said was feeling like they didn't deserve the love of their children.
Yeah.
Boy.
I know.
Like, first of all, your children deserve for you to feel like you're accepting their love. That's important. And now that I've said that, I want to give because I know that this person is a person that is going to be really hard on themselves. Like, it's okay that you haven't been doing that. And also there might be some work there for you to do around self-worth so that you can model for your children what it's like to receive love. Like that's a skill that we want people to know how to do. And it's not an easy one for everyone. So I would say there's probably something there around self-worth. And when we're dealing with self-worth, we're really looking at perfectionism again, like this idea of being worthy, deep beliefs. So coming back to those needs and fears, and working with a lot of self-compassion with the person.
Yeah, it made me sad. I hope that this person can get curious with themselves because you're definitely deserving of the love that your children give you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, just focusing on like are there any models of, assuming this person is a female, is a mother, are there any models of mothers that you look up to? Identify who those people are, and then get curious about, are those people perfect? And if they're not, in what ways do you see them still succeeding as a parent without being perfect? Something I notice, and a lot of people I work with on this topic, is that often their closest people or the people they admire most are often people who are able to be really authentic and vulnerable with their struggles. And I actually think that that's a great human connector, is when people share their struggles. However, a lot of people, even though they're drawn to that, don't believe that they themselves can be imperfect or share that same level of vulnerability. So yeah, just turning yourself towards, okay, this is something I am drawn to, and these are positives that I want to emulate in my own life. And how can I maybe incorporate a little bit more of that philosophy into my day-to-day?
Yeah. I love that. I think, do you know what I was thinking of is when you said something that people admire is like authenticity and vulnerability. Something I have always admired in other people that I myself need to do more and be more, and I want to embody more, is I love people who are authentic in the way that you can tell that they are not caring about other people's reactions to them. So I'm so attracted to somebody who's just confident enough to own a strong opinion or a different way of being, or just like an unapologetic way of being themselves. And you can tell that there's, or you feel from the outside, that there's no mental loop going on in their head about whether it's right or wrong or how people are receiving you.
Gosh, what a great thing to admire, and I totally agree.
Yeah.
It's very admirable to
Yeah.
carry yourself like that.
Yes, exactly.
If you know anyone like that who has any secrets.
Yeah, I'll point them in your way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good. Well, thank you. I'm loving all the things you're sharing so far. So, okay. Number 3. Tips for disagreement on whether or not to have more children. I know I didn't we didn't bring the light stuff today, okay?
Yeah. People can't, they were like, oh, there's a counselor coming. I've got some questions.
Free advice. Let's go.
Okay. So first of all, there is no right answer to this question, which is what makes it so tricky. Yeah. And what makes any big kind of lifestyle decision within a partnership difficult when you have differing opinions, because there isn't a right or a wrong. Like if we should live in a city versus rural life, if we should have one kid or no kids or 5 kids, or there's not a right way to live. It's what way do you want to live? So what I pose to people who are kind of at forks in the road with their life and they're making a decision as a team is, again, getting clear with yourself. What is the quality of life that you are seeking? Okay. And then if you were to get what you want individually, what feeling would you have? How would you feel? And then what are other ways, other than the thing that you want, that you could also get that feeling? So for example, if this person is deciding between having one or two children, just for the sake of argument.
Mm-hmm.
And the one person wants to have two because they want a big family. They want to feel like the house is like noisy and full and right. So we're creating a picture, a vision, and probably an energy that they're seeking in their life. And the other person is saying, no, I just want one child because I want to feel like I can give all of my attention and pour it into one person and feel like we have a really strong connection, but also feel like I have time for myself as an individual. I want to feel like I can fill my own cup. And I feel really worried that if we have more children, I won't have time to do that. And then actually, I won't be a good parent and I won't be able to pour into my child. So there's lots of like fear happening there. So, okay, what are other ways that you can get that feeling? So for the person who only wants one child and they're wanting to make sure that they can fill their cup, okay, so if we did have more children, other ways that I could ensure that I had that feeling would be coming up with some kind of plan with the partner to make sure that there was that built into the schedule on a regular basis. That maybe there's individual, like one-on-one dates with their children every week or whatever feels good for them. That like there's other ways that they can ensure that they're having their needs met and that feeling that they really want of peace or space in their calendar. And for the person that wants two, that's kind of wanting the opposite. They want the chaos, they want the energy. Okay, so if we only had one child, maybe I know that we are always going to invite our child's friends with us on family vacations, and we're always going to have like the neighborhood kids over for dinner on Friday nights, and I'm going to volunteer to chaperone all the field trips and like be with the energy and the kids. So there's other ways that we can find this energy. And okay, now that we've explored that there's actually multiple ways to have this need met, maybe now we're having more of a conversation of curiosity, presenting these different choices to each other instead of this polarizing it's one way or the other way, because there's actually multiple ways to get what we want or to feel the way we want to feel.
Oh, I love that reframe. That's really powerful. Like thinking about the energy or the feeling. That's a beautiful reframe, I think, for people. And obviously, because I'm obsessed, I was thinking about how understanding each other's human design would really help in this scenario or might help.
Yes.
Because truly, like for some of us, the hustle and bustle is overwhelming, and the need for space and independence and rest is literally built into us. And for some
of us, like for some people that or
and then for others, they thrive in that sort of humming environment. So not that it can solve all your problems, but I was relating it back to that, going, yeah, that makes sense. I bet. I bet I could picture these two people's designs if we were talking about them. Oh, thank you. Okay. Number 4. I have been focusing heavily on my abundant mindset, but my partner views money as bad and the problem. How do I continue to focus without letting their mindset leak into mine? Because I'm finding it is. That's what they said.
Okay.
Yeah.
This one was interesting. I feel like I need like follow-up questions from this person, but maybe you can help me out with it. But like, I'm imagining that this person, when they're thinking abundant mindset with money, they're thinking like, I'm going to have a mindset where I believe that money is free flowing and there's not a scarcity, right? So they're not thinking that they need to stress and kind of hold tightly and have this tension around finances. Yes. Is that how you would read it also?
That's what I assumed.
Okay.
Yes.
And then that their partner is thinking that more of a scarcity mindset. I got thrown by the word bad, I guess.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking like, okay, so they're thinking, no, we need to have like a lot more intentionality and be like maybe more savings, less spending, more of like a tightness with money.
I thought that. I also thought more like one person is trying to call more money into their life with having an abundant mindset, but that the partner, like, I guess, has a negative way of sort of associating money because they're stressed out about it.
Like we don't actually want more money in our life. Money is bad.
No, I was thinking more that like money is hard. So like I don't know what,
Mm.
but I don't know. I'm not sure
Okay,
either.
yeah. So
Maybe,
okay, so
yeah.
we're reading into this. Okay, so I'm going to
Yeah.
answer this question rather generally
Okay.
because finances is something that couples talk about a
Mm,
lot in therapy,
yes.
and it usually boils down to the same kind of things.
Okay, good.
So
You can just, yeah,
we'll
do
go
your
general.
therapist thing here.
Okay.
Just like this is what I see. This is a pattern I see. Yeah.
Um. Okay. So people come into relationships with a lot of feelings about money.
Mm,
Like there's just so much psychology and so much emotion in finances that I think it's starting to get talked about more
yes,
now, but
definitely.
I don't know that everybody is as aware about how much it can impact relationships and cause a lot of conflict,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're not aligned.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, for this person, regardless of what your two different points of view is, bringing in a little bit of mantra to your relationship, which is that we are allowed to have difference of opinion and still stay connected, right?
Mm,
It sounds like maybe there's a little bit of polarization and tension happening around we have to agree.
mm.
And I find that when, regardless of what we're agreeing on, when that energy comes in, conflict usually escalates. Like
Yeah.
it starts happening more and more and more because there's this pressure.
Yeah.
We have to believe the same.
Mm,
And the reality is that we don't. We don't have
mm-hmm.
to believe the same. What I hope for couples is that they understand each other.
Mm.
So, some questions again that I would have you pose to yourself and then talk to your partner about this, as you can tell, my favorite format. Um, is what are your values about finance?
Mm,
And then, are there any experiences from your childhood or your early years that would inform the values that you have about finances?
mm-hmm.
Get curious with yourself about how, like, what's my level of savings versus debt that I need in order to have safety?
Mm-hmm.
Use the word safety over security because it's actually a feeling of safety that is triggering a
Mm.
lot of conflict around finances, likely in your relationship. Um, and then
Can you give an example of a value about money?
a
Like
value about money.
like
Yeah.
what's your value? Yeah. Can you just
A
give me?
value about money might be I value spending.
Mm,
I value having my family have the newest of whatever they want, and I value experiences. I
mm,
value going on trips. I value going to shows. So this would be more of like a spending mindset or value, whereas somebody else might have more of I value future planning. I value security and savings. So I'm going to make
mm-hmm.
sure that we've got our retirement savings lined up. I'm going to make sure that we've always got a budget. We're never going into overdraft. We actually don't even have credit or mortgage. We save all of our money first and then we pay for things, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then once you've outlined what those are for yourself, ask your partner to ask themselves the same questions and then share them with each other and say, is there anything about me that you didn't know? Is there anything
Mm-hmm.
about my partner that I wasn't aware of? And
Mm-hmm.
again, coming together with a place of curiosity. So let's imagine that we've got one person that's got a value of spending and experiences, and one person that's got a value of future saving. But now you're sharing with each other, what are my childhood experiences that are informing these values that I have and the reason that I feel safe, making sure that I'm giving my family experiences, making sure that I'm setting my family up for the future. It
Mm-hmm.
can kind of soften our um
Approach.
yeah, and our
Mm-hmm.
assumptions and judgments about our
Mm-hmm.
partner. And now we have a little bit more compassion and understanding for one another, and maybe we can actually, I hesitate to say the word compromise, but like meet in the middle a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
find more space instead of that big polarizing area
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of Ramit Sethi?
Yes.
Yeah. I like that he gets people to outline what your rich life looks like because,
Me too. I just listened to him on a podcast,
oh, did
actually.
you? Oh, there you go.
But I haven't watched the Netflix show,
Oh,
right? That's
yeah.
what,
Well,
yeah.
and he also has a book. I have his book.
Oh,
It's
but yeah,
called Your
I
Rich
loved it.
Life or something, or how to get, I can't remember what it is, but he has a very similar theory in that people can say, I want to be rich, I want to have money, but that everybody has a different idea of what their rich life looks like. And so talking
Exactly.
with your partner about like, if we had a certain amount of money or if you felt rich, like what would feeling rich be like for you? For
Yeah.
me, it's getting to go on vacations. For
Mhm.
me, it is getting to buy things that help me with health, like whether it's
Mhm.
certain products that sort of help me feel more healthy or like a good quality, or
Mhm.
being able to buy the membership to whatever I want. Like that's something that I value, right? But then my
Yeah.
husband's rich life is like boats and like toys like that,
Yeah.
which is fine. But it's so helpful to have that discussion because again, there is just that like those visions that you both have that you want to make sure you're aligning
Mhm.
with. And that so often we can just be on completely different pages, like not in any sort of malicious way, but it's just you're
Yeah.
different humans, you know?
Exactly. And I was
Yeah.
just going to ask, how did you feel with your husband after you two had this conversation comparing what each rich life looked like?
Well, we giggled a lot because they're quite different.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
that's okay. But yeah, it was helpful. I think it was helpful in just really having that out there in a concrete way
Hmm.
instead of just assuming. I mean, I could have guessed what his rich life was for him.
Hmm.
Um, his involved like not working but still having a ton of money, so that was also interesting. I was like, bring it back down. Let's bring it back down to reality.
But
But
it sounds like, you were like, it sounds
mhm.
to me like you felt more connected. You
Oh,
had a deeper
completely.
understanding.
Yeah,
And that's the goal in these kinds of
yeah. Like
conversations.
removes, alleviates some of the tension.
Hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Thank you. Number 5. I'd love some strategies. This isn't me. This is the person talking. But I'd love strategies to navigate a partner that constantly commits to change but never actually follows through.
Mm, I have some tough love for this person.
Okay. Yep. Yep. Hit us. Hit us.
um, Okay. So I think that in these situations, it can be really easy to point a finger of blame and responsibility on the person that is not respecting somebody's boundaries or not following through when they say they're going to.
Mm,
And I'm not in any way saying that they're in the right. However, there's actually more responsibility on the person that is almost allowing this lack of change to continue.
mhm,
So, what I imagine is happening is that the story that I would make up for this person is that they're asking their partner for change. Their partner is saying, absolutely, I'm going to do that. And then they don't change. And then the partner maybe silently feels frustrated about this, maybe brings it up in a moment of conflict, asks for the change again. The partner says, absolutely. And then they don't follow through again. And this cycle continues.
mhm.
So, what is happening here is the partner that is not following through with their change is not explicitly receiving a message that it is okay to not change,
Mm.
that there is no consequence to their behavior continuing exactly the way it has been.
Yeah.
Period.
It's like it's like it's like with our kids. It's
Yeah,
the same, you
it's
know.
the same. So it just comes down to assuming that this person has been communicating their boundary or their need clearly and directly. That's the first assumption. That it's needing to also clearly state what the consequence would be if their partner did
Mm,
not follow through this next time on change.
mhm.
And then the third step being actually following through on that
Yeah.
consequence, which is the hardest part. It is
Yeah.
so hard.
Yeah.
So don't make empty threats. Don't, like, we're not talking about ultimatums here, but just like, hey, if this continues,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to likely do damage to our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm not going to be able to do X
Mm-hmm.
any longer, or
Mm-hmm.
something. Like, these are
Mm-hmm.
going to be the natural consequences that happen if this
Mm-hmm.
behavior continues. And if the person says, oh, yeah, 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 of course, of course. I mean, they're testing you.
Yeah.
They are testing you if they don't follow through, or if they don't follow through on their change again. So you have to show that you're serious about your needs
Right.
by following through on what you've said.
Ironic because they have to follow, they're getting mad about the other person not following through, but they have to
Mm-hmm.
follow through as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very ironic.
Do you see can I just be nosy and ask, like, what is the number one thing you see people come to you for? Like, what do you feel like you spend your days being like, yeah, I heard this, let's talk about this, when people sign up for sessions?
Um, well, the vast majority of the couples that I see are in the early years of parenthood, and it
Mm.
is
A
usually
shit show.
it's usually number one,
Hmm.
they say, we need to work on our communication.
Hmm.
Number two, our sex and intimacy
Right.
gone out the window. Um, Number three, like parenting issues, feeling like we're not on the same page, resentment, etc.
Hmm.
And then number four is usually like this low hanging fruit of like, and also we want to have like less screen time, or like we
Hmm.
feel like,
Yeah.
I don't know, we need to exercise
Disconnected.
more. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
But yeah, I would say it's usually those three over and over and over again. And I always think communication's funny because it's like such a broad
Yes.
thing, but it usually means people feel like they're having the same fight over and over again.
Right. Yeah. They're not being heard and they're not
Mm,
hearing.
yeah.
Okay. So for the listeners, they hear that those issues are normal. Autumn sees these all day, every day.
All day, every day. These are normal, everybody.
This is happening to you. It's okay. It's
Yeah,
okay. I've actually
absolutely.
been having some really meaningful conversations in my DMs lately with a few different people who have just transitioned into motherhood. And this is coming off the heels of me releasing the podcast and me just talking about like having a hard time in my postpartum journey. And so much of the difficulty that comes in being a parent and like becoming a parent is being faced with yourself and your own expectations of yourself and what parenthood is going to be like. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just something you can't know until you're in it. And it's interesting to kind of learn about ourselves and how we deal with that disappointment, that reality, that shock, whatever that is. It's a really like fruitful time almost to be able to dig into that and understand yourself better because there's so much going on that is just
Mm-hmm.
brought to the surface.
Yes, you've said that so well. And I know it was true for me with my first. It was
Mm-hmm.
true again for my second.
Yeah.
It's true for every client I see, like all my friends. It's just something, it like unearths these
Yes.
deep things that have dynamics, old patterns, etc., that have been just lying dormant, or you've been just letting slide for a
Mm-hmm.
long time. And usually a lot of it has to do with our own family stuff
Yes.
or our partnerships and how that has translated into that relationship. And
Mm-hmm.
now, bam, we have this little human that's mirroring back to us this dynamic. And there's the stakes are so high
Yeah.
because a lot of us want to feel like we're not screwing up our children. And so
Yeah.
it just feels like, oh my gosh, I have to do some work to figure this out.
Yes. Yeah. And and that it's kind of socially normal, or I felt like I received the messaging that you'll know what to do, like you'll become a parent and you'll know what to do,
Oh boy.
or it's natural, or like, and I mean to a certain extent that's true, but I don't think there's enough dialogue out there about how like every parent, it's their first time, including our own parents, who at one point we
Yeah.
thought they were the be all end all of understanding the world. And it's like, yeah, we just need to be more compassionate with ourselves and give ourselves more grace for sure.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah. Well, my friend, thank you so much for joining us and sharing all of your knowledge. And I'm curious, but are you taking clients still?
I am.
Okay.
Yes, I have a few slots open.
Okay, great. Yeah, so if you liked what you heard, Autumn is still taking some clients. She has some slots open, and I'm going to have all the information in the show notes, and probably I've already said it in the intro at some point in time. But I think I want to just reflect back for a second. Like, I remember the first night that I met you. I don't know if you remember.
Was that that house party?
Well, I mean, like, there's been a few house parties. It was when, I remember meeting you, and you were living with our mutual friend Hannah up in what's it called? What's it called when you live on campus in the house?
Oh, cluster housing.
Cluster, right. I was like, it's co-housing. What is it? No. And this is so funny that you and I are podcasting years later, because we just like met each other and we went deep. Like, we got right into it. And you were basically counseling me back then because I was going through a shit show of a time. Actually, and I'll probably do an episode.
As I was too.
Yeah. We kind of had similar situations, actually. And so I just think it's funny how it's come full circle now. Here we are, like, in the throes of motherhood. We've, barely stayed in touch over the years, but like, it's like, okay, let's do this again and let's go deep.
Right away.
Yeah, right away. I love it.
It's the only way I know how to be.
Truly, same. I'm not here for the small talk. I'll be very, very honest.
Same.
Well, I love all of your content online, and I love seeing what you're bringing to the world, and just that there's sort of a trust there and a beautiful validation that you're giving couples and people to know that, like, they're normal. Fighting is normal. Working through conflict is normal. And I'm really excited to see what your upcoming offering is. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. And no, this is so exciting for me. And I'm so inspired by you just creating a podcast and putting yourself out there. And I'm just here for it. So yeah, so grateful to be a part of it.
Autumn texted me before. She's like, "You're stealing my podcast virginity." I was like, heck yeah, I am. I love that. So great. Hopefully you get many more invitations. I hope you do. And I'm sure I'll have you on again, because my audience will be like, I'd like some more free advice, please. Oh, yeah. So before I let you go, can you let everybody know where they can find you? And I'll have it all in the show notes.
Yeah. I hang out the most on Instagram, and it's at the Nest Counselling with 2 L's _ or nestcounselling.ca.
Perfect. Thank you. Why? Yeah. Autocorrect really like messes with us with the double L.
God, it's one of those like American versus Canadian things, kind of like how color in Canada has a U, but not in the States.
Yeah.
It's the same. So it's
a
whole thing.
I didn't know that. It always bothers me. Okay, great. Okay. Well, Autumn, for all that you're doing and all that you are, thank you for always raising the room.
Thanks, Danica.
Thank you so much for spending your precious time here with me today. If you'd like more, please follow along at raise.the.room on both Instagram and TikTok. Or you can go to my website, danicamarie.com. That's Danica with a C. Here you can book a human design session with me for you or your child, or you can get one of my human design parenting courses that helps you understand your child's human design type. They're designed to help you work with the child you have instead of against them. And finally, if you're still here, this would be the point where I'd ask you to rate and review the podcast, except just saying it out loud makes me want to die. So instead, I'll say, please share with a friend. I'd really appreciate it. And finally, let's always remember that with all that you have to offer, you will always raise the room. Can't wait to chat soon. Bye.